If you follow this channel, you know that we love Focal speakers. Entry level to cost no object, Focal makes speakers that speak to us. So, what makes the KANTA #1 different? Let's find out. The KANTA #1 is a two-way rear-ported bookshelf speaker that features a roughly 1-inch beryllium tweeter resting atop a 6.5-inch flax cone woofer. According to Focal, the two drivers, along with that rear-facing port, combine for a reported frequency response of 46 Hz to 40 kHz. Sensitivity is stated to be 88 dB with a nominal impedance of 8 ohms, though the speaker can dip to as low as 3.9, meaning that most of the time the KANTA won't be that difficult to power to loud, satisfying levels, but for some content, a competent amplifier may be required for absolute best or reference results. Made in France, the KANTA #1 is unique, at least when you compare it to other speakers in its class. It features Focal's somewhat trademark upward-angled baffle, similar to their flagship models like the Diablo Utopia Evo we reviewed last year, which, by the way, we loved. Depending on the colorway you choose, you're actually treated to a trio of finishes. The top and bottom of the speaker are piano gloss black, with the sides and back wrapped in a variety of veneers, and the front baffle receiving its own accent color. Now, you are seeing the matte ivory and walnut scheme here. At nearly 30 pounds apiece, though, the KANTA is a large, hefty speaker. We use the KANTAs as part of a two-channel setup, pairing them with the Denon A110, Technics R1000, Roxon, Atessa, and Canor amplifiers. All of the amps sounded great with the Focals, but if I had to pick a favorite, I'm actually leaning a little bit more towards the Technics. As for the rest of our associated equipment, we use the KANTAs with our Audio-Technica LP140 XP, Blue Sound Node, our Apple TV 4K through our Sony TV, and my aging iPhone, here and there for Bluetooth or to control the Node. Before I get into the speaker's in-room measurements, understand the #1 is rear-ported. And it is that rear-ported design that dissipates a lot of energy out the back, giving the speaker a more bass-heavy sound, one that is larger and fuller than what I'm used to from Focal. Pull the ones out from the wall and you will hear more of Focal's trademark, livelier, dynamic, and detailed sound. Place them too close and it's possible the KANTAs will sound nothing like Focal at all, but let's get into it. With the speakers placed in our room where I could objectively see the best balance across Focal's entire frequency range, I then took a few measurements 20 to 20. At first glance, the bulk of its response tracks in near linear fashion, but zoom into that bass and we can see that around 200 Hz there is an injection of energy. Now, you can affect this a little with a change in placement. Nevertheless, the presence of the rear-facing port does pay some dividends for Focal in the bass department. While the speaker may have a beryllium tweeter, it is ever so slightly rolled off, which makes detail more present, but outright fatigue over time not. Measurements aside, the KANTAs here, they're just a different beast. While the line is positioned somewhat between the CHORAs and the Diablo Utopias, the #1 bears little resemblance sonically to their stablemates. The ones are actually giving me major high-end Revel vibes. The first thing that is immediately noticeable is the boost in the bass. These speakers play with authority down to 40 Hz and even have a little extra body on the low notes, so double bass and kick drums have more low-end oomph compared to, say, the B&W 805 D4s. While the 805 may be a hint leaner as you near its low bass limits, it's nevertheless more resolving and quicker on the draw than the Focals. So similar to my remarks in our recent Denon PMA A110 review, you have to ask yourself, do you prefer a little bit more bass heft at the expense of some finer detail, or do you want your speaker's woofers to be a scalpel down low? If you prioritize a bit more weight and presence, go with Focal, but if agility and precision is what you're after, B&W. As for the mid-range, there isn't much to report apart from the fact that if you have the speakers placed too close to a wall or any surface that's going to result in the bass being reinforced, it's possible to muddy the mid-range, and this will result in the speaker having a richer, more full-bodied sound throughout. In our room, with the speakers roughly 3 feet out from the front wall, I felt that I got the KANTAs to strike that right balance between their bass and the mid-range without sacrificing detail too much. The slight boost in the bass helped to ground mid-range leaning instruments and performers in a way that was more reminiscent of my experience with my old Revel Salons and even the M16s to a degree. Historically, I would say that when it comes to intelligibility, there is nothing quite like a Focal. But with the ones, there were a handful of instances where the added weight cost the speaker some of its articulation. As for the highs, well, I'm not one who puts a lot of stock in beryllium tweeters, because like all tweeters, it isn't the material, it's their implementation. That said, I think the beryllium tweeter inside the KANTA is actually really nice. I like its presence and airiness without coming off as overly forward or worse, fatiguing. Even at high volumes, the KANTAs don't ring or glare, something I can't say about all beryllium tweeters. When it comes to soundstage and dynamics, the KANTA is neither a scalpel nor a dynamic brawler, at least when compared to my experience with the Utopia line. The KANTA can throw a wide and deep soundstage with a good center image, but there is a hint of smoothness around the edges of performers and instruments that keeps the stage from being, well, chiseled out of granite. I'm not suggesting that when listening to albums like David Gray's Lost Song or Tori Amos' Legs and Boots that all of the instruments and performers just sound jumbled together, but you can achieve a greater sense of separation from speakers like the B&Ws or PERLISTEN S4Bs, and this is likely due to those speakers' more inert cabinets. Dynamically, the KANTAs become more agile and explosive as you turn things up. Playing at volumes around 60 to 75 dB or so, the focals are smoother and mellower than, say, the CHORAs. Now, increasing the volume so that dynamic peaks crest 90 to 95 dB, the KANTAs start to sound more like the Utopias, only with a bit more bass weight. As for comparisons, I'm going to do my best to keep these apples to apples. So we're going to start with the similarly priced Bowers & Wilkins 805D4. The focal is a little less forward, weightier, and overall it has the fuller, even warmer or lush sound in direct comparison. I would have never guessed that I would give the detailed crown to a speaker not named focal, but in this matchup, the 805D4 sounds like it unlocks more of the music. For the money, I prefer the styling of the 805, and I also feel that the Bowers & Wilkins has a slightly better build quality. Its cabinet is definitely more inert. Looks are obviously, they're subjective, and while I prefer the color option focal gives its customers, on the whole, I personally would go with the 805D4s over the KANTAs here. As for the PERLISTEN S4B, this is a great matchup and an example of what's possible when you take two speakers with arguably the same performance envelope, only with two vastly different approaches to cabinet design. Both speakers strive for neutrality in the mid-range with similar roll-offs in the top end, but when A being the two, it's easy to understand how the PERLISTEN's cabinet steals the show and gives the costlier S4B the win. That said, the focals are more decor or design friendly. Are the S4Bs worth the added $2,000 over that of the focal? Maybe, but I'm still having a hard time getting past the PERLISTEN's, well, street-like looks. Compared to the costlier Diablo Utopia Color Evos, going off of memory, I don't think the KANTAs pull off the upset here. The KANTAs are good, great even, but they didn't immediately just take my breath away the way the Utopias did. The KANTAs reminded me a lot more of our time with the ARIA K2s, which is another good focal speaker, but one that took a bit of an experimentation in order to get just right. The KANTA number 1, it is a unique focal speaker. I like it and have enjoyed my time with it, but it never quite struck the same chord with me the way the CHORAs or Utopias did. The CHORAs were just shockingly good for their sub-$1,000 asking price, whereas the Utopias, well, they got me to forget about the La Scalas for a minute. Regardless, the KANTA number 1 is still a good speaker, it's just not my favorite at this price point, nor within Focal's own lineup. So that's it. That is now my take on Focal's KANTA number 1 bookshelf speaker, but what'd you think of it?
Well, before we get into that, I just want to say a quick thank you to everybody who left me a happy birthday. Sorry, that's my stomach. Who left me a happy birthday message yesterday. I really, really appreciated all of your comments. Were so touching and mean more to me than you could ever know. So thank you so much for that. If you want to do a little something extra, make sure you are subscribed because we are so close to hitting 300,000. We're like, I don't know,
500.
Something.
Well, by the time this airs, we might even
I don't
be
know.
closer.
It's close. So if you haven't subscribed, please do. It would mean the world to me. Okay, back to focal.
Okay.
First off, I just want to say that historically, I have been a huge focal fan.
Yes.
But unfortunately, the number 1 is not for me.
Okay.
I think you alluded to in your review that this speaker is quite the departure sonically for focal. I mean, at least it it to me it is.
Yeah.
I know you likened it to the higher end Revels. Now I've never heard those.
Okay.
So when I thought about, well, what does the KANTA number 1 remind me of? The first thing that came to mind to me were the Dynaudio speakers that we reviewed, the Evokes.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of forgot about that.
Yeah, I know it's been a while.
It's been a year. Yeah.
So a lot more bass heavy, a little bit less articulate, 2 characteristics that just happen to not quite be my personal cup of tea.
Right.
But I think that they're going to appeal to a lot of people.
The KANTAs.
The KANTAs, because of that. I mean, for the same reason that maybe it's not the speaker for me, I do believe that it's going to maybe give people that have possibly overlooked Focal in the past something else to consider.
Because maybe they thought Focal was like too bright or lean. This would be and maybe that KANTA the ARIA K2. Those two to me are the most similar.
I would agree. I think that this is even more bass heavy than those, and those were towers.
Yeah, I would have to hear the K2s in this new space again before I take that journey with you. Going back to Dynaudio, though, I do think that these are a little less light, like a little bit more light in the bass. Like they still have that little bit of injection.
Yeah.
But the Dynaudios were warm, man. They were like, I don't want to say syrupy because I really enjoyed them, but they had a lot more heft. I would say that there's probably 3 to maybe 5 dB of extra boost in the low bass region with the Dynaudios compared to these, but
I would agree.
I mean,
I'm not saying
track.
they're exactly the same.
Yeah.
If I was just trying to come up with something that was a similar sonic, had
absolutely.
a similar sonic vibe, and
Yeah.
those were the first things that came to mind.
Okay.
Now, for me, if I'm looking specifically at Focal,
Okay.
if I had all the money in the world, it would just the Utopias would get it all.
Yeah.
Those are still some of the very best speakers I've ever heard. Yeah. It's just, they are just really out of reach for most people.
Yeah.
But if you ever have a chance to hear them, I encourage you to do so. They're a lot of fun.
Yeah.
They're very special. Now, otherwise, I feel like the CHORA line is proving to really be the value leader for Focal, especially if you want that more typical Focal sound.
Yeah.
If you do go with the KANTAs, I would encourage you not to pair them with the Denon A110.
Yeah.
I think an amp like the Technics, which we use the R1000 in this review, I think you could get similar results from the model just below it, the
SUG 700 too.
Yeah, the Mark II.
Yeah.
Or something like the Roxen is going to be a better match. It's going to handle those low notes with just a little bit more authority. It's something I feel that this speaker really needs.
Yeah.
So
the Rotel 1592 also kind of comes to mind as an option as well. I enjoyed listening to it with the Denon. I believe in the B-roll you're seeing the Denon as well as Technics. But I agree with you. I think Technics is the better match. SUG 700 Mark II also being a good match. Roxen, Rotel, the more authoritative, grippy amplifiers versus the warmer, romantic ones would be a better fit for this speaker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, overall, really the biggest surprise was just how unfocal-like these speakers sounded.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just one last thing, a quick note about the finishes. The colorway we have is the matte walnut and ivory. And I know that if you look at the product photography for this speaker, specifically in this particular color, if you were to order them and then they show up, do not be surprised that they really look dramatically different. In the product photography, that front baffle looks a lot more beige than it does in real life. In person, it's going to be more of a soft white and ivory.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the brown in it that it looks like it's going to.
Yeah. Know that if you get the white version, not the one we have, but the white version, that is a high gloss white, similar to what we had in our Utopia review. And then yes, this one is more of a warmer white cream, but not brown. I don't know what white balance they used or something on their product photography, but yeah, I was pleasantly surprised when we took them out of the box. Like,
because I was out of. I mean, look, when we reached out to Focal to request these, we knew we didn't want all black, and we didn't want. We could have gone with the white. That I think that would have looked good in here, but so we wanted something just a little bit different. But to be honest, I was like, this. I did not like the way the image looked in the product photography, so I would go back to the drawing board and totally reshoot those if I was Focal, because I don't think that it's representative of what the product actually looks like. But
took them out of the box. I liked them.
Yeah, they look way better. It'll be a pleasant surprise because it's going to look way better than probably. Then I think it would if it really looked like the picture.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's it. That's all I have to say.
That's all you have to say?
Yep.
All right. Well, that is now our review of Focal's KANTA #1 bookshelf loudspeaker. What did you guys think? My question of the day for you is this. We have reviewed almost, I know some of you are going to be like, you haven't done that. I know, we haven't done all of the lines, but we've done most of them. So of all of Focal's lineup of products, which one do you prefer? Which one's your favorite? I'm really curious how this shakes out. If you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Go ahead and ring that bell so that you're notified when new videos come out. If you use any of the links that Kristi left for you down below, know that that's a great way that you've continued to show your support for this channel and the work that we do here, and both of us thank you very much for doing that. Follow me on Instagram at recoveringaudiophile, and that's it for us today. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. I do appreciate you joining, so let's wrap it up. Remember, the only person who has to like the sound of your system is you. So happy listening, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy your time with friends and family, and we'll see you on the next video.